Okay, let's see if I can make this thing work.
You are a piece of
What up, everybody? I don't know how to turn my fucking alerts off. I think if I do that, it won't go off. Let me see. Yeah, all right. Fixed it. All right. Let's see. Let's make a phone call, shall we? Hey.
Hi guys, can you see me?
Yep. Hold on, I gotta adjust the volume a little bit.
Can you hear me?
Wow. Yep.
Okay, how's the sound coming in? Sorry, it's a little.
No, you sound fine. I'm just trying to get volume levels for everybody.
Okay. When you're ready, I'll send out the announcement on our Discord.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
Let me just pop this up to full screen.
Is it normal to not see your own video feed, or is it? Oh, there we go. Is that better? Can you see me now?
Yeah, I can see you. Yep.
Hey,
Steve.
how you doing?
Hello. All right, hold on. Just trying to get everybody in the same place here. All right, let's see. Now, if I move this to here. Hey, okay, cool. Everybody shows up on the stream. Good stuff.
All right, I'm studying this now. Spamming everyone.
Okay. So, yeah, looks like we're all here. So, hey, everybody. My name is Onepeg, and I am flanked by Terry, the head of Iron Mace Games. And below me here, you see my man Sacriel, who is kind enough to also join us for our conversation today.
Hello. How are we doing?
Good. Terry, how's things going, man?
It's been pretty challenging this time around. I'm not gonna lie.
Oh yeah.
If I knew this was gonna be a video, I should have probably done a quick shave too. But it's only a 1-day stubble, so not too bad.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
So
this one was tough.
It was tough. Yeah, because you said that you only had what 3.5 weeks this time around, right?
Yeah. So actually, after the last playtest, we extended it until the 26th, right? And then we just took the rest of the year off. We told everyone, all right, that's a wrap for this year. We'll see you next year. And then we came back, January 2nd, and then started working on the next for this playtest. But the other thing that happened was right in the middle, we had the Lunar New Year's, which is a big holiday in Korea. So it was like basically that week was a wash too. So everyone, people took time off there. So we actually only had, if you count even to this day, is 4 weeks then of actual working. So in terms of, so we're not going to have as much juicy content this time, or things to talk about. So we thought about what can we do in this limited time of development time. So for this upcoming playtest, because it's in conjunction with the Steam Next Fest, is that we've kind of focused more on quality of life features. So I think it's partly it has to do with because we're doing it with that Next Fest. We think there's going to be, in addition to the people that participated in the previous playtest, we'll probably have a little bit more exposure to, people, just a wider indie, game audience. And so to make things a little bit easier for new people onboarding. So that's kind of where we focused on this time.
Yeah, and you guys have seen
with 3.5 weeks, it's kind of hard to.
And you guys saw a pretty meteoric rise between the September playtest when I started playing and when I made that first YouTube video. Because at the time that I made that video, So at the time that I made that video, the only thing that existed on all of YouTube was a 30-second clip of somebody taking on a 3-man party from the playtest prior, like your very first playtest.
That was Spiky, I think.
Yeah.
You were one of our,
That's the only thing that existed before that. So you went from assuming you were going to have 300 players to having 10,000 concurrent at peak. And then the next playtest, you had 30,000. And then this last playtest, you almost hit 100,000 concurrent.
I think 69,000 was the peak. But
Yeah.
more than that, what we're really happy about was that the average concurrent user was
70K.
pretty solid at like over 50,000. And so
Yeah,
That's crazy.
It's still amazing.
So I mean, what that kind of showed us was, so originally when we started this project, is we knew that we wanted to target the North American, the Western market. You know, that's where it's going to resonate. The setting would resonate most. But I think what the last playtest kind of showed us is, first of all, our users are super hardcore. If you look at our average playtime, it just keeps on going up with each playtest, right? It's insane numbers. And so like Steam has these analytics that we could check, and they put people into different kind of buckets of where, you know, the average playtime. And our graph is like, you know, obviously a lot of people at the front, and then it goes down. And then we have this at the very end, the last bucket is like a big jump again. And we're like, whoa.
So you have a lot of addicts.
Where do they have time to sleep? You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You had, did I read that you had over 1 million uniques on Steam?
Yeah, this time. So
That's awesome.
That's crazy.
That is crazy. For a 4th round playtest or whatever, you know? I mean, that just means you guys are making something special, man. You got a lot of people addicted to what it is that you're creating, and that's pretty cool.
Yeah, so, you know, big shout out to the team right out here.
Yeah, I have hundreds of hours. I'm not even ashamed to admit it. I've been living in that game when it's a lot around, man. So in regard to this last playtest, the one that, you know, that concluded, you know, we're coming up on the next one. So from the last playtest, we always start off this way whenever we have these conversations. What about the last playtest did you think worked well, and what do you think didn't?
Man, I should have prepared better.
Yeah, catching you off guard, dude. Come on, man. This is the 3rd time we've done this. I ask the same question to start every time.
So what did we do well last time?
Well,
you got a lot more players.
The rate of the blue portals, and there was a lot of feedback about that, and then you quite rapidly changed that around until you found a happy medium. That was a good change.
Yeah, so I think first of all was, you know, okay, so
the skeleton skins were cool.
Oh yeah, so there's going to be more cosmetics that we're going to try testing out. We're not exactly sure if the current implementation of the shop is what we're going to go with. Or, you know, we have other ideas, but we didn't have time to implement all that. But we were able to put in more skins. I think so. In terms of balancing, it's not actually, we're not going hardcore into balancing, but we did want to start doing some of the balancing. Obviously, we're not where, you know, like some of the magic stuff. I was
gonna ask about the wizard. See what you did to my boy.
It's like, you know, we watched those videos and
we're
like, oh, you know, in our world, in our mind, it's like that's where magic should be powerful like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
But because like some of the formulas and some of the design work that we did was a lot of it was done before we actually implemented actual magic spells. It's just like theory crafting, and so and we haven't actually edited that since. So that was like, oh wait, yeah, maybe we go. So some of the tables and stuff, but so we're not. We still haven't edited it. That's one of the options that we always had in mind is, okay, this is one of the ways we could balance it but that's kind of going the easy route. And so I think this time we're gonna try some other ways of balancing out, like the magic, the power curves and stuff. We're not gonna actually touch. We might. So again, we still have like 4 or 5 days, right?
Right.
And so we're gonna do more internal testing, but we want to make it like, oh, if you get to that super, just specialize in one area and make that crazy, having that kind of ability to have these kind of weird builds. We still want to encourage that, right? We don't want to press everyone down so every play style is similar, right? So we're trying to find that kind of medium there. So I think, but I'll straight out say what we're doing with the wizard to kind of balance it was the starting stats. So
Yeah.
again, this is holdover from where we designed the classes before we actually had a magic system inside the game itself. And so when we made the wizard, right, is that in our mind, like the wizard was like the guy that studied a lot of magic. So he had a lot of knowledge, but then so he's going to be more versatile, right, with magic. And then in our mind, like the guy that's the super powerful magic user is like the sorcerer. The sorcerer is like the guy that has like the innate magic abilities, but he didn't study. He read like one magic book, and he's like super good at those spells, and they're super powerful. So he's not as versatile with his spells, but he would be more powerful. But what happened is our wizard right now is more like what we imagine like the sorcerer would be, because we actually implemented magic. We didn't have a lot of spells, right? And then the other thing was we didn't have the knowledge attribute wasn't fully implemented until the last playtest, right? So when we were playing with our wizard and he had all these stats and knowledge, it was like, dude, he's like nerfed compared to all the other characters because they don't have a high knowledge stat, right? So we're like, oh, okay, well, that's no fun. He feels weaker than all the other characters. Let's kind of switch it around so he's viable inside the current framework, right? And now we have knowledge working properly, and so it's like, okay, so we haven't, at least up until now, things could change in the next 5 days or so. Okay, let's go back to what our original intention, that vision of what the wizard was, right? Is like, oh, he's like a more multi-purpose kind of magic user. And so we're actually looking at, instead of touching too much of the power tables, is that we're going to actually touch the balance the spells directly itself, and then actually change around the stats of the starting stats of the wizard. And so the other thing we realize when we're going and looking at the stats is that so all the characters have base stats. If you sum of all the stats is 75, except the cleric. So
he's missing a point, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. He's got 74. Yeah, my boy, you did him dirty.
Yeah, so all the cleric users, this time we'll be happy to know that we give him an extra point in agility. So
you hear that, Chad? We got our point back. Let's go.
Yeah.
I think one thing that's really interesting about the game, and that is going to prove to be a gift and a curse to you when it comes to balancing, is no matter how much someone stacks into one build with one set of stats, if they step in a hunter trap and just get headshot with a crossbow, they're dead. If they just walk past a rogue that happened to be in stealth and they get stabbed in the head with the ambush thing and the right perks, they're dead. So there's quite a lot of binary fights where it doesn't matter what stats someone's got, whether they're in grey gear or epic gear. If they just walk through that door, clink, look down, and they go, oh god, clink, headshot from a crossbow, dead. So as much as it might feel like, oh, there's that highlight of that wizard running into a 3-man and killing them, that wizard maybe next game walks into a trap and gets killed by a dude in greens. So there's all these more interesting nuanced fights that you can get into where it doesn't really matter how powerful someone is, because there's lots of situations where you make one mistake and you're instantly dead.
Yeah, so I mean, we've had internally the design team, we've had a lot of conversations about how we want to do balancing, and I think part of it is that instead of just like going purely on wholly data driven, and then we want to have like everyone using the same amount of you know the class distribution, skill distribution, spell distribution, perk distribution. Is like, no, we do want these kind of really high peaks and valleys, because I think overall in the end, that's what makes it more fun. It's like if you had like a fighting game, and even when they try to balance fighting, the fighting games, you have a huge roster, but not every single character is viable in like depending on what kind of scene that you try to, in the competitive scene, maybe there's like five characters that
Exactly.
right?
There's like 5 S tier characters, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but it doesn't. But the thing is, like, as long as all the characters are fun in its own way. So, and this goes back to my experience. Like 20 years ago, I read this game called Shattered Galaxy, which was like a MMORTS game, right? And so it was like an RPG / RTS online game, and you could build all your little mini soldiers and stuff, right? You could make put on their different armors, guns, the tanks and stuff. And so and there were the amount of combinations was in the billions, right? So it was like, okay, how do we balance this? And back then, I actually tried to balance everything. Like, okay, so let's make things so people are picking things at a fairly even distribution and stuff. And we made this big update. We crunched worked on that for several months. And before, it was like people would have the craziest weird builds, and we did this new update, and everyone in the beginning was like, oh yeah, now it feels so much more balanced. But then as we looked at it, like people just started dropping out, because it's like playing Street Fighter and all you have is 2 characters, even though they all look different. Their play style is just one play style, and that's kind of what ended up happening. And so for us now, it's like, okay, where there's these huge peaks and valleys, is maybe our goal is like, so it's not too extreme, right? But we do want to have these kind of different kind of valleys and peaks and stuff, where people can figure out the things that fit their play style. But at the same time, because these are happening, there's always going to be those kind of situations where you could be the most powerful wizard, but you step in one trap, and now you're in real danger. Yeah. And so for us, it's like, that just makes more interesting gameplay. That makes more interesting game experiences. And so that's kind of what we do. So we kind of understand, like, this is kind of an impossible. And for all the different classes and perks and skills that we still have in our minds that we want to start implement in the future, we realize, like, trying to perfectly try to balance it through distribution and how people are going to pick it, that's going to be kind of a futile, endeavor. So our thing is just lean into making the game more fun. Yeah.
Okay.
Seems to be working so far.
And it's not going to be balanced. We realize that, but we're going to, our goal is to make these extremes not too extreme, and still there's make these kind of crazy play styles viable, somewhat viable, right? And it makes good Twitch moments. That's what we want. So,
highlight real stuff. I like it.
Yeah, highlight real stuff.
Yeah.
So look at that, and it's like, oh, that's what I want to do.
Okay, so with High Roller Dungeons from the last playtest, we saw the introduction of High Rollers. How do you feel like that went? We saw like there was some adjustments to how the loot distribution was, like a little bit later on in the playtest, where you guys kind of buffed the loot quality that started coming out of like the latter parts of the dungeon runs. So how do you feel like that went? And then like, I know that there was a bit of a community split with like leaderboards being related to High Roller only versus like normal. And like, what did you guys end up coming to on that?
So High Roller was always in the picture from very early on in the discussion of how we wanted to do this, the service in the game. And so that's something that we're going to continue to tweak. So early on, we knew that there was an issue. There's not enough people going to High Roller. First of all, in terms of the difficulty too, was that we overtuned the difficulty. So and when you went in with just like even all blue items, it was kind of on the high end of the difficulty curve. And so we did need to do a lot more tuning there in terms of giving enough incentive for people to go to the high roller. So even if you did go to the higher rollers, the initial drops, this the tables there, we were not giving enough incentive for people to say, oh, it's worth my time, it's worth that risk to go in there. And so that's why, we've been tuning that. And in terms of like now, so I'll give you a little hint of what's upcoming, is that in terms of, there's going to be very, very good incentives to go get the boss in high roller this time.
Nice.
Right? Yeah, because there's certain stuff, like the only way to get unique items is by beating the boss, right? Mm-hmm. And we're going to make it worth your time to go and get those unique items now. So.
Okay. That sounds like it's going to be pretty fun. I'm okay with that.
Like, all right, we'll see. I think people will be pretty excited when they discover some of the new uniques that come out. So.
Okay, so speaking of bosses, we had the ARG that you guys did that luckily we were able to figure out, and one of my community members and one of his friends ended up finding the QR code under a bench. So we were able to get that figured out. And then we have this image of the troll boss, the cave troll boss, and it looks like he's in a cave. So we were thinking like troll boss and B1. Does that mean that that's coming with this playtest?
Yes. I'll let you know. It's not B1. Okay. So that's the twist.
Wait, what? Say that again.
So it's going to be very experimental. There's this big divide, right, in our community about, hey, how do you support solo adventurers, right?
Okay.
And so we're going to do a big experimental thing this time. Is that so again, it's weird. So our policy, the way we designed the game from the is that we're not big fans of just having a solo queue, right? But in our mind and what we want to accomplish for the game, 5-10 years down the line, right? The overall vision is that Dark and Darker is not just about just one dungeon in itself. It's that there's this whole world, right? And so we want it to feel like it's like an actual world setting, right? And so this is it's going to be like a teaser. It's like, everyone is used to this dungeon that they're familiar with right now. It's like, oh wait, but we want to give you a hint of, okay, there's more to just this one location, right? We thought, hey, well, there's this whole thing about solo adventures. It's like, okay, can we leverage, what we want to do and start expanding on the world setting, and then, kind of experiment to see, okay, how much desire and how much need for it, and can we design an experience around just, so the one thing we didn't want to do was like, make a solo queue just for our current dungeon, because that's not what the the current, crypt dungeon was designed around, right? It's around that kind of whole, hey, I'm here with my fantasy party and we're going dungeon diving, right? And it's like, okay, but these adventurers, they're not always going to be hanging around with their adventuring crew. Sometimes they want to go do things on their own, right? And it's like, okay, how can we accommodate that and still keep within the lore and expand upon the setting that we want to do? And so that's kind of what that hint with the cave troll is going to be. So again, it's very experimental. We're looking at, okay, because the community, at least a large part of the community, has been giving us that message. It's like, hey, when my friends aren't online, I still want to be able to do something that builds upon my character. And it's like, so, they made it loud and clear that there's that kind of need. And we want to, like, SDF, the guy in charge of our studio, charge of this project, like, when we kicked off the new year at our company, he said straight up, he says, the goal of our company and our team is to fulfill the dreams of the gamers that want to play our games. So that's our main motivation. And so if they had that kind of nostalgia and dream to want to be adventuring, but not always with a group, hey, we got to take that seriously and let's see if we could do it in a way that we could make it our own that fits this whole Dark and Darker experience. So we're going to try it. If it could totally blow up in our face, we realize that. So there's going to be this big, huge experimental. I've used that word a lot inside, So we're really looking to collect data and saying, okay. And again, it's like version 0.1. So just like high rollers needed a lot of work from when it first came out, the first iteration, we realized this is going to require a lot of work to get where it's a good starting point to start getting a little bit of data and see if, hey, is this just a vocal minority just, kind of shouting, or is this a real desire and a real need that we have to accommodate? And so that's, and there's definitely a lot of concerns on our end too, is just because it will split the player base. Like even with high rollers, that was our biggest concern, is like, okay. So one of the things that we did learn with the high rollers was that we're not getting as many people as we expected to go into the high rollers. A lot more people are still playing normal dungeons, so that's why like we're putting up more carrots right now, right, for high roller. And so we know like having this new dungeon that's focused on solo experience is going to pull a lot of players from the current player base, right, or the current matchmaking pool. And so that's a big concern for us. So that's another thing that we're going to be looking at. But I think just because of the success from the last playtest, that's kind of what gave us the ability and like kind of confidence to say, okay, if we get the numbers that we did that last playtest, then even with some pool of audience going in here, we in our numbers, our preliminary numbers that we crunched, is that we could still have a healthy matchmaking pool for our current dungeon, and with the newly enticing high roller dungeons, have a good chunk of people going into that, right? So again, after the playtest, we'll have a lot more concrete, data that we could talk about, and then we could say, this is in the direction that we were hoping for, or this was like an utter disaster failure. We'll see. Yeah, but unless we do something like this and we test it directly with our players, and we won't know. Then everything it's like the theory crafted magic power curse. Yeah. So that's what the cave troll is hinting about.
So completely separate dungeon.
It's going to be a completely new dungeon.
So for solo players.
For solo players.
That is awesome.
Around, yeah.
Let's go. All right. That's great. I think that is going to be a lot of fun.
Like if we see things that's not good for us, it can disappear in the middle of the playtest.
But to be fair, if you wanted to play solo and go into the group side, you could still do that.
You can still do that. Yes.
Yeah. Will there be a separate level of difficulty for the solo side, or is it the one dungeon run troll boss and that's the run?
That's the run right now. So again, this is because first of all, we had 3.5 weeks. The idea, the concept actually started the first week of January. We're like, oh wait, there's so much people asking for this. Is this even viable? And we're like, okay, well, if we do have enough sleepless nights, we might be able to do this. And so that's where we're at right now. Like it was built in basically 2.5 weeks. Yeah.
I think it's gonna be fun, man. I think it's gonna be fun.
I hope so. So and we're looking for that feedback to see. And again, please realize this is the first iteration, the first experience. That's what we're hoping to build upon. And if we're totally in the wrong direction, let us know about that too. So we're going to be looking at this as an actual pure. I mean, every single playtest before, we've always approached it as this is an actual playtest, and we're trying to figure out, are we doing things right? And it actually does change our direction. So very obvious point is the skill tree right now. That went in almost in September, right? Or no, was it the October one? We haven't touched it yet because right now it's like, man, we had that fully designed out, and what we realized is like, oh, maybe our design and our initial the assumptions that we made for that, it might not actually fit the actual direction of the game. And so that's why it's involved, because we have to revisit it and see if, okay, now the way that the community has driven the game is that, okay, how do we kind of bring it back? And so again, real true playtest, and things that we feel like worked out well, those are the things that we keep on carrying over. Things that so we are getting a lot of good feedback.
Can I ask what the maximum quality item can drop in a solo level 1 dungeon? Is it blue, epic, mythic?
It'll be, so right now, okay, so again, we'll probably change it as it goes on, but right now it's going to be epic. For the,
Really?
So yeah, so it basically, think of it like so it might go up to legendary. So we're still tuning that troll. Yeah, and we have other ways, other dials to make it difficult, not just by increasing the damage of the troll itself, like other aspects of the map. And the density of how many solo adventurers go in. If you're attacking finding the troll boss, and then if 5 other solo guys come in there, it's just going to be chaos, right? So yeah, we have these little things that we could start messing around with.
Okay.
So right now it's epic, but if we make it more difficult, maybe even up to legendary, we'll see. Yeah.
Troll boss is gonna be tough. I got a feeling he's gonna be hard. Playing by trying to kill him yourself, I think he's gonna be tough.
You gotta be very careful. Yeah. So the other thing we kind of wanted to do with the troll boss is that like the current bosses, the ranged characters have a lot of I guess it's a little bit easier for the range characters to take down the bosses. Yeah. So this with the troll boss, we wanted to make it like, I mean, range has its advantages, but like getting up in the face with the troll fighting it is going to be a better experience. Yeah.
Okay.
I suppose it'd be interesting if
Yeah.
it'd be interesting if maybe the bosses across the board could potentially have weak spots that can only be exploited by melee characters to offset the amount of damage someone can do by just sitting back and plinking, dodge the spell, plinking. If you're the warrior or the cleric or whatever, you're a fighter, you're up front fighting, and then a weak spot appears, and you're like, oh, I can get my crit in there, and you kind of feel like you're doing more, pulling more DPS.
Yeah. So those are the things that we wanted to kind of start experimenting, but just because of the short duration of development time this time. So the other thing, like just because we're such a small development team, is that we can't do a lot of the actual 3D art assets in house, right?
Mm-hmm.
We have one full-time 3D modeler that makes assets, and then our art director, he could, our art leader, he could do 3D models, but his time is so valuable is spent making sure, hey, the art team is not, blowing up, right? So, so we're using a lot of, assets from the marketplace, right? So the limitation there is that because we're buying these things, and then we have to customize it.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
But, so, like, if everything was custom made in-house from the ground up, then it takes a lot more pre-planning. But then we could do a lot of those kind of things you're talking about. Sacriel was talking about from the planning stage.
Design,
yeah, but then now because we're starting with like we have some limitations that we have to work with, and I'm not saying that it's you can't overcome it. It's just that we didn't have enough time this time. Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair.
Well, that's kind of insanely impressive, because the agility I've seen from your team, despite the small studio size and the quick pace that you're putting out the content, my mind is just imagining a year from now when 2 million people have bought this game for $30, and you can literally just outsource to an art studio and go, hey, we need 100 grand's worth of troll assets. Boom. Like the amount of content, the innovation you can bring, because the kind of the floodgates open and you're no longer held back by these things. It's going to be an amazing journey for that first 12 months. So I think we're going to see some awesome pushes from you guys.
I think so too. Because you guys are 22 developers on Keywords.
That's exactly the dream, right? So, but at the same time, our limitation right now is the actual. So what we realized with this playtest, or this upcoming playtest, so we do have those kind of limitations with our capacity, but this time we felt that kind of constriction, that bottleneck was actually the design team. So we only have 3 full-time game designers, right? And it's just like it's level 1, level designer, the system design, or like the weapons and the balance and stuff, and 1 monster designer. And so they're all excellent. They're the guys that are making the games, right? All that content, but it's just 3 people. Oh, I guess SDF, creative. He's actually the full designer, so 4, right? Doing all the design work. And so this time, even if we had all those assets and everything all lined up, it's still 1 guy is going to make all the monsters right now. So there's that. So we do need to find a solution for that too. So, but if we get to that stage that Sacriel was talking about, oh my God, yeah, that's going to be a huge problem to have. So that's the dream. That's the dream for us right now.
Yeah. And it will be. You're going to sell 2 million copies of this game, man.
Yeah, I can't see a future where you're not selling.
But it's happening.
In the next 6 months.
Yeah, that's happening. Yeah.
Easy.
How are you guys on pace for your Q2 release? Do you still feel as though you're hitting that target?
So like I said, this next playtest, I think so we kind of just because of our expected audience reach with the next fest is that because we focused a lot on the quality of life features. So originally it would have been opposite. If it wasn't like an actual next fest and we just went with like a alpha playtest 4 or 5, right? 4, 5? Yeah, sorry. A little confused. But if we went with that route, then we would have done, content based, and then for early access, we'll start working on all the quality of life features that people expect on once they start paying for a product, right? But this time, because, we're going to have a more generalized audience, indie games. So, and the other thing is because it's Next Fest, one of the requirements for Next Fest is that it has to be released as a demo. So, we were thinking, we'll push the Steam not just playtest, but we can't do that for the Next Fest because we're actually, as a participant in the Steam Next Fest, the requirement is that you have to release a demo version of your game. So this time it's going to be, the process is actually going to be a little bit different. Is that we were hoping, everyone that has it pre-installed, they would just need to turn on Steam and they'll have an update and then, but just because of how all what they require for Steam Next Fest is what's going to happen is on the 6th, what we're going to do is the Steam Next Fest actually starts at 10 a.m. on the 6th on Pacific Standard Time, 10 a.m. on Monday. But what we're going to do is we're actually going to release our demo a few hours, I think 6 hours earlier. And so what you would do is you go to our webpage or the Steam page, and just like in the past where there was that, launch playtest or, request access to playtest, there's going to be a new green button that says, download demo or launch demo. Yeah. And so it kind of sucks because you're going to have to download this entire, 10 gigabyte client again. But that's just what we have to do this time.
There might be a sneaky way people can save their bandwidth. Sometimes when a game on Steam switches from one title to another, if you go to your Steam Common Apps folder and copy paste it and then repair, it will just look for the differences. So all the sounds and textures and models that are remaining the same, it says, oh, they're still there. So as long as you've not embedded them, people might be able to save it for those that don't have like fast internet.
Yeah, so pro life tip right here for Dark and Darker Next Fest. Yeah. So what was the original question? Sorry, I went off on that tangent again.
It wasn't really a question. It's just a statement about we can't wait for the floodgates to open, I guess.
Yeah, you're going to sell 2 million units. That's not even a question. It's happening.
So if that happens, I will put out another tweet personally thanking you guys for being the
predicting it.
Yeah. The soothsayers, the fortune tellers.
Everybody buy the game, okay? When we can. All right.
So it goes back to if it was just going to be like a normal playtest, we would have done a lot more, focus on content and expanding that out. But because this time, because of Next Fest, we focus more on those quality of life features, making improvements to some of the features that are already in the game. That I mean, it is alpha, so there are a lot of things that are kind of cumbersome, and so a lot of that stuff is going to be improved.
Just take my money.
So
sorry, go ahead.
Oh yeah, sorry. So hopefully, if people, if the new quality of life features meet the expectations of the players this time, and then we can start focusing basically on building up enough content to get to early access. So I think if things go well in that aspect, then I feel pretty good about going early access. I know in the past we've said April, but I'll be very realistic. It's more like end of April or maybe May. That's probably going to be more realistic.
That's fair.
Yeah. I think the biggest thing for us, one of the biggest challenges is going to be B1. In my mind is like that is a must-have for early access is to have B1, and we're still on the concept phase for that. And
speaking of B1, there's been like community rumors back and forth, and I think we've talked about this in the past, but and I know that this is something that Sacriel has kind of been rallying for, would be the idea of starting in like an outdoors kind of forested area and then working your way into the dungeon from like the outside. So I guess my question is, for B1, will we be able to see the sky?
There's actually been that discussion internally, and so again, I don't want to commit because we haven't actually done any real development work yet. But seeing the sky was actually talked about. Yeah.
Okay.
So,
all right. So you're saying there's a chance.
There's a chance. There's definitely a chance. There's definitely.
So many of us have that memory of playing like Diablo for the first time, and you're in the little kind of ruined town, and it's raining, and there's a stream, and there's orcs and goblins, whatever, and then you find a cathedral, and you go one layer down, and then you see like, oh my god, we're going deeper. That's such a compelling fantasy like experience that people want. And I feel like if you spawned in on B1 and you're just like immediately underground in a cave, you might lose. So like, I'm sure that experience I'm sure will be curated and awesome, but I think there's an awesomeness of like being on the surface and fighting little pockets of mobs, then gradually working your way towards, whoa, what's going on here?
So okay, I'll be very frank, is that scenario that Sacriel explained, it's the same stuff that we talk about here, right? Internally, it's like, oh, all those kind of shared, that kind of emotional connection that you had when you were playing those old fantasy games, and in your imagination, oh, you're in this, and so it goes back to the company speech that SCF gave to everyone and said, that's our job. Our job is very simple. We have to fulfill that kind of fantasy, right? And so that is our standard that we want to do. The issue right now, the reason I have that question mark is by Q1, Q2.
Yeah.
Do we actually have enough time and enough capacity to give that experience, build that experience? Because that's our eventual goal, we're gonna have that exact, what you explained, we're gonna have that eventually, right? But is it gonna be in early access? I can't say for sure. And because we're very, we try to be very realistic about, like when I look at, our team right now, is we want to give you that feel, but realistically with our team and that time frame, that's going to be very, very challenging. So like one of the things we talked about was like, oh man, okay, maybe we have to just go P1, but at least we're gonna have like openings and stuff where the shaft of like moonlight and stuff comes in to hint at like in the future, there's an outside, you're not always up in again, there's so many different factors that go into it in terms of like how we can start building out capacity to do that and finding the right assets, and because we're working around a lot of limitations. But maybe 1-2 years down the line, that's what Sacriel explained. That's our goal. That's like the ultimate goal for one of the locales that we're thinking about.
Now I'm getting hyped up.
Yeah, and it kind of ties back into that D&D, right? If you ever play D&D, you often start off in a village or a town or something, and you head out into the wilderness, and you find a cave or a dungeon, and it's that kind of, I don't know, it's kind of like elevating, going from I'm fairly safe on the surface fighting gnolls and goblins and stuff, and then all of a sudden you go underground and it's like I'm stuck in here now. So yeah. I love that. I love that that's your end game goal, but I totally get how that's a big ask for a studio that with your size and everything.
we have different step by step. We have to get there step by step. But yeah, the other thing is, one of our things that we always talk about internally is like, yeah, that's our dream, and we always want to have dreams, dream big, right? And even if we don't get there, if we dream big, right? That is actually what we talk about. Us, we want that. But even if we don't get to that ultimate goal, just knowing the direction, like when we get confused, oh, okay, but that was our dream. Okay, so that's why we can start getting hints of that, and then eventually things will, people could share that journey going there.
Nice. Okay, so I guess like interface stuff. Well, actually, you did have one other question. So about like game mechanic related stuff. Well, I guess weapons and armor. So blocking angles for shields. A lot of times when you go to block with even a kite shield, NPC hits and stuff, if you don't have that angle perfect, or if you're not like getting up in their face and kind of cutting that angle off, that I don't know if it's a glancing blow that does like a little bit less damage maybe, but a lot of stuff seems like it still gets through an awful lot on those hits. Is that something that you guys have been looking at?
So we haven't been looking at that actively. So that's something we want to polish up. So basically, the way all the blocking and the blocking system works is that all the attacks and stuff have collision tracers, right? And so when it goes through the animation, it'll track where all the tracers go. All the blocking, like the shields, anything that a parry, have the same. They actually have collision boxes, and so we're checking. Okay, per tick is if the path of the weapon animation is actually blocked by the collision, then that's what makes a successful block. If any point though, like it has to be very, very precise. We're using the actual physics engine of the Unreal Engine to calculate this out. And so this is, I think, where we might need to figure out where the polish comes in, is that because we're just being exact, right? Is that, and there are issues with the frame rates. So like if the server tick rate kind of stutters and stuff, and or there's weapons that are so quick that it goes through the entirety of the motion in like 3 or 4 ticks, right? And so you have these, but I mean we do those calculations, right? So, but I think the main disconnect is that we're using very, very, very precise calculations to do these kind of blocks, but because you're not physically there and you're in that first person view, is that if there was a camera looking out and looking at it, you could actually precisely see why you didn't block it.
Yeah.
Even though you blocked it, like if the tip of the sword glances your forehead, you will take that headshot damage. And so it's a very it's not an issue that could be totally solved just through the logic itself. So we have to start figuring out ways to polish it so it feels better to people. And so those are things that are on the plan, But again, this time we're at a point where it doesn't feel great, but okay, it gives you a hint of what's to come. And so it's kind of on the back burner right now. But it's on our list of things that we have to fix up. So there's a ton of those kind of stuff, right? And so those are things that kind of burns, okay, we want to work on that. Again, if you look at the list of stuff that we have to work on, it's all about prioritizing things in a way. And so we're still early enough that there's a lot of stuff that we could do that we call it like the low-hanging fruit, right? Yep. Where it's like, for the amount of effort and the amount of impact that it has, that in our calculation, that has to the overall general community and our players is that, oh, we still have so many of these larger things that we have to still work on. And so that's where our focus is right now. So things like that, those are always in the back of our mind that we have to improve upon, but there's just these other gigantic tasks right in front of us that we're looking at right now.
Okay. One other like weapon related question. Two-handed mauls. Can we have an overhead?
You and two-handed mauls, Onepeg. Every game I play with this guy,
I just want an overhead.
No, so we may have gone a little overboard with the movement penalty. So
okay,
that was actually this week. Okay, on the heavier two-handed. So yeah.
Yeah, the movement penalties on two-handers were pretty rough. Yeah, made clerics really slow and played really slow. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm not saying it's back to the what is it, the October playtest, the October playtest where it was basically no movement penalty. So the September playtest had movement penalty as severe. It was probably worse than the December one, right? Mm-hmm. And then the October one, we're like, it was all because of the rapier. Okay. That's why at the start of the December playtest, we were like, dang, we got to remove the rapier from the rope. And then there was a big, huge, Yeah, and then so it was a delicate balancing act there. But I think we did go a little bit too overboard. So, it's for us, like the reality of balancing is like sometimes we go to the extreme, and then we have to kind of ease it back up. So it's very hard to on that first try to hit that balancing mark.
Is there Is there any chance of changing the attack animation on that weapon? Just because it swings, those wide swings left and right, it's pretty much like you have to be playing by yourself or you're just gonna clock your teammates. I think I team killed him like 5 or 6 times. Just because the backswing would just catch him in the face and then he'd fold like a lawn chair.
So like one of the most famous Korean streamers. So because we're a Korean company, is a lot of our team watches they killed the Lich, and a legendary war maul came out, and he's like, oh my god, I've never seen this before in front of 18,000 streamers. He's like, oh okay. He's like, I've never slain a legendary war maul before, so he's just like, and boom, and then his teammate walked head first into the swing. It made awesome content. That's
amazing.
And we saw that. So the answer right now is that we haven't touched that wide swing. Yeah.
Okay.
I think it means it's kind of at this point it's kind of like a meme item, right?
Yeah.
So again, we'll look into it, but it's not just very high on the priority.
Yeah, it's okay.
So,
okay.
Before you carry on there, I have one minor point to make about speed. As a wizard main, the slow spell. Sorry, buddy. The slow spell is really strong. And I noticed that when you changed it so there were more harsh speed penalties on swing animations, you could get like warriors, fighters, and barbarians to like hilariously low speeds when they swing. And I wonder if there's room. I don't know what your code is for the speed thing, whether it's a percentage-based reduction or just a flat unit-based reduction. But I wonder if it would make more sense if the slow spells capped people at a certain speed, so that if they are particularly fast, like a rogue or someone that's used a haste spell, it brings them down to a normalized speed. But if that person then goes to swing a weapon, they don't get slowed down on top of their movement speed buff. And it might help balance that out. Because sometimes in fights, I could literally slow a barbarian and just stand in front of them and slow them again and take one step back. And they're literally just stood still and they can't do anything. And I felt like maybe reducing their speed to a cap rather than reducing it by 1% might balance out.
There is currently a cap. It's not a very sophisticated capping system. It's just like, so I don't know off the top of my head the actual the formula we're using for that slows. So we do you know, movement penalties with just an actual nominal amount. We do it by percentage base. So I don't know exactly how the slow is. So it's just there's so much complexity right now with these systems.
Exactly. Yeah.
There are things that until we hear about it, it's like, oh, okay, it's not on our radar because when we're
Yeah, that's why I'm saying it. Yeah.
yeah. So this is something now we'll look into. It's like I don't know if it's going to be an easy fix or not. Like,
Oh, sure.
yeah,
it's just something to put on your radar so that you might go to whoever it is, whoever's job it is to figure that stuff out and say, what is the slowest speed someone can get to? If they're swinging a two-hand weapon, they start with default movement speed and they're slowed by a mage. And if they calculate it and go, oh, Jesus, that's barely moving, it might be worth like implementing some kind of cap on that because it might get a bit crazy.
Yeah, otherwise we're going to start playing yakety sax in a highlight reel.
Yeah. Sorry, I interrupted you.
No, dude. Listen, man. This is just as much yours as it is mine. Gold storage, in your storage, is that being changed? Because I know that there was talks about having it consolidated.
So display test. So again, this is why it's really bad for me to hard commit on things because I've said stuff and then now it's like, oh, why did I say that? So I think in the past I hinted at, oh, we're gonna, give more options for gold storage. We haven't touched anything on gold storage. Okay?
All right.
And the thing is, there's actually stuff that we built in already. So like, right now there's pouches, right? Gold pouches. We actually built like bags and chests and stuff. But the thing is now, we're not sure if we're ever going to implement this is because, doing more in-depth about analysis and stuff. It's like, okay, we're learning things from the play style and giving players these kind of restrictions have like side effects, like, play styles that are coming out or behaviors and stuff. And it's like, okay, well, is that at first maybe that's not what we desire, but after deeper thinking, it's like, oh, maybe that's not a bad thing. And giving those kind of restrictions gives people, makes people do things that explore more, I guess, or trying to figure out, be more creative. And so I'm not saying we're Xing the idea, but I think right now there's a very good chance that in the future we're gonna implement it. Is that, but hey, let's we're not in a rush right now. That's kind of what changed, and we'll see like how people react. And if it gets too overbearing or burdensome, because we're still doing a lot of other kind of tweaks and with the economy and stuff, and so we'll see. But yeah, no big money changes, no big goal changes, except quality of life stuff is like, we're making it so interacting with the menus, interacting with like the trade, like the trading post, it is actually really close to what we wanted to do. But I guess it's kind of a victim of its own success, is that you go into the trading post and it's too crazy there.
It's
right?
a zoo.
Like you want to buy something, it's basically reading the green lines from the Matrix. Some people are really good at that. Oh, there's something, and by the time you've made that offer, it's already gone. So we worked a lot this time on trying to figuring out ways to make it more, not even accessible, but just like functional, I guess.
Okay.
So those are kind of the things that we've been really focusing on for quality of life features.
Would it be possible for the gold bags that you can buy to have a larger capacity for the coins that they'll hold?
Well, so again, that's a very easy change for us. But on purpose right now, we're not going to do that just because, giving these kind of restrictions is,
Mm-hmm.
So
I kind of agree because like
Yeah.
it felt relatively easy, especially as streamers playing a lot. Even carrying this guy, we'd end up with like 8,000 gold, like just sat around. And if we had double-sized bags, it'd be like 16,000 gold. And what I really hope the game avoids is that Tarkov end game where you have so much money when you die, you don't go, oh my god, I lost my favorite ring that I got when I killed the boss, and I was, oh, my teammates died and I last hit the boss. All these, you really get attached to your gear, and you just go, oh, I died, that cost me 1,000 gold. Go to the trade thing, spend 1,000 gold, I'm back to normal. Go into the next game, oh, I died, that cost me 1,000 gold, and it kind of takes away the, I'm putting on my favorite ring, my favorite boots, my favorite sword. It's now just going to the marketplace and just dumping gold to get more gear, and you end up with this it kind of makes a game stale.
Yeah. So I think that's what we kind of discovered is that, having that hard, because there's a hard limit on the maximum amount of gold that you can store right now, right? Is that, that exact kind of thought process that goes into what Sacriel was talking about is that's kind of what we discovered is that, because we have that limit, a lot of people are making strategic decisions because of that limit. And so this is something that, we didn't actively design around. It was just like, we don't have time to make the extra stash. I mean, it's easy to do, but it was just like, we have so much other stuff to do. And so we never implement. And actually in our design documents, we have all this stuff, like at the Excel, we'll have, premium stashes and stuff, or, for a long time, community asking for like, shared stash and stuff. So those are things that we actually worked and designed about. And now we're like, but it's actually making the game more interesting and more fun by giving people these kind of limitations and seeing how they're working around their limitations and how they're being creative with those limitations and what their thought process. So that's the cool thing when you watch streamers and it's like, you can see with their mouth, like what they're pointing at and it's like that kind of, the gear. I think that's the cool thing about games in itself is like, or when you're spectating someone and just you can tell like when they're surprised or like when they're just by those little subtle things, and that's the hints that we're getting. And so hey, we have this option, we could turn it on easily, but it's like, but those little kind of bits of joy for us is like, is it how direct is that link right now? And so, let's hold off and see if this is the actual cause of people making those kind of decisions. And so that's the motivation, not putting that in.
So the idea of something like a shared stash, probably being put on hold then.
It's on hold right now.
Okay.
It is basically like almost all that you're like, we need it. There's no question about it. We need it. And now we're like, yeah.
It's another.
Yeah.
All right.
It's another example of an issue that on the surface it feels like you could make some broad statements like, if you just increase the gold bag sizes, people can have more gold. If you increase the stash size, it might encourage people just accumulating more gold. But there are some hidden depths to it. For example, what I found was a lot of people were making alts, and those alts were literally just, hey, dude, trade me 10,000 gold and from my other character. And someone would end up with like 20, 30,000 gold on their account anyway, by circumventing that. Whereas if you had a shared stash, by virtue of having a shared stash, they now can't have alts with gold because all the gold goes to one pile. And then if that shared stash is a certain size, they can't go over your decided cap to make it feel like, I have to, the players are always encouraged to not just have so much money and buy everything. They're still out there looking for gear in the raid.
Yeah.
It's a really complicated, nuanced issue that you're going to have to navigate.
Okay. So
exactly.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh no, yeah. So that's why it's on hold, but it's still on the table. So again, it just requires a lot more analysis, I think. And
okay, I've been putting off the question that Chad has literally been spamming me the entire time. Voice over IP in the game. This is, by the way, chat.
Yes.
In the last conversation, this was already a thing. It's 100% going to be in the game. All right. So for everybody wondering, it's going to be in the game. It's just a matter of when. So what is the progress looking like on that?
It'll be in the game this test.
It's going to be in the game this test.
Yes.
Let's go.
Yes. So again, it's it was a big technical.
Dude, chat's just doing this right now.
So actually, I wanted to get input from because you guys are big streamers, and I know that. So we have it's going to be on by default. Is that what's the typical hotkey for like the instant toggle it off? Because there's going to be tons of trolls and stuff.
So is it playing Tarkov full time? For me, I think by default they put it as the P key, but it can people make it foot pedals, they make it mouse buttons.
Yeah, thumb buttons. Yeah.
If we can redefine it, then great. But I know that was a thing with like key bindings for you guys where you were working on trying to implement that.
So we have the basic keyboard bindings for that. So by default, I think it's like the comma or the period key, but you guys will be able to customize it.
Okay.
And so because
really important thing about the big hotkeys is, especially as streamers, having a hotkey we can use to just press and it mutes the VoIP instantly.
Yeah.
Rather than, oh God, this guy's saying something racist. Escape, settings, audio, scroll down, VoIP, turn off.
It's
having that hotkey is really important.
Yeah. So we internally we realized that it's thanks to the streamers that we've even gotten this far, and so now a lot of our decision making is like, okay, we have to always be in consideration of there's difficult challenges for you guys too, right? And so how do we make it easy for you guys? And so that was a big thing. It's like, that's why I was asking, so it's instant, you press it, it'll just mute it. And then there's the other one where you press it, it switches between just team only or the proximity.
Okay.
So that's what we've been working on the most, is like, we have prior to this, internally, we always use our internal Discord, and we basically banned people, muted everyone, and you have to use the in-game VoIP and to see how it works. So again, it's our very, very first time implementing this kind of technology and this solution. Please understand that it's going to improve. We're working on it. This is our first time working on it, so but it'll be in this time. That was the big announcement that I wanted to do this.
That's amazing. I think everyone's looking forward to that. A big question I've got as a rogue and wizard main: can we use VoIP in stealth? Because I can't wait to be stealthed in a dark room or something, and there's a squad in there, and I'm just like, hey guys, and they're just looking around the room like, what the hell?
Yeah.
What'll be very cool is
but in my mind, the way we implement it should work. Yeah,
that's going to be hilarious.
Absolutely.
So
yeah,
I think that's what we'll have to test the next few days.
It's going to be awesome. I'm so stoked about that.
Yeah.
So, the other thing that Chad has been spamming me about, bards. The bard.
Yeah. Again, so obviously, just because we haven't been focused on content, there's not going to be a bard this time.
No bard for this one. Maybe next time. Okay.
Hopefully next time. Hopefully next time. I think. Yeah, I inadvertently, now I'm thinking about it, I think I kind of gave away another class, right? The sorcerer.
Yeah.
It's pretty typical. It's gonna obviously any of those traditional fantasy roles, we're gonna start working on it.
Will there be any like new spells or perks or anything like that being added for this one for any of the classes that you can think of?
Not much. Yeah.
Okay.
Again, yeah. I mean, there might be like one or two, but
Okay.
it's not going to be a big in terms of the actual game content experience. Again, just because we're expecting a less hard, to be nice about a less hardcore audience. So we haven't tuned any of the difficulty itself, but then we do want to make it so at least not the non-gameplay experience is as smooth as possible for them. And so the other thing with VoIP that we're adding this time is an in-game party finder. So you don't need to just go and just start spamming invites to everyone. Is that we'll actually have like an in-game chat room, and you could inspect other people, and it's separated by regions, and so
Nice, that's cool.
And to I guess supplement that is that there's going to be a karma system.
Oh.
So if you team kill too many people, like your name will turn red. So it'll be very hard for you to. I mean, you probably need to do a lot of convincing to get people to party up with you. So these are experimental stuff that we're working on. Just because, even though it doesn't add to the actual gameplay experience, because we want to widen the net for new players coming in, is to make it as smooth as possible. These are the things that you could expect with the playtest.
One thing I thought about when I was speaking to my chat about like just partying with random people is you're obviously going to get these people that spawn in, just stab someone in the head and take their gear. And I thought what would be interesting is when you die to a team damage, if it popped up on the screen and it said, and there were two options: this was accidental, let them loot my body, or this was a team kill, don't let them loot my body. Because that would instantaneously stop people queuing in just a team kill. Because when they kill those two people, two random teammates, and they go to click the body, it's like they said this was a team kill, then it's like, oh, I can't get any loot. Whereas if you're playing with someone and you build up a rapport, you're with them for 20 minutes, and then they finally hit you with a fireball or something, and they're like, "Oh God, I'm sorry." You can be like, "Hey, no problem, dude. This was an accident," and then they can loot your body, and you can queue up with them, and they can bring your gear back next game, that kind of stuff. So having something that just says you can't loot my body because you team killed me might immediately prevent a lot of trolling.
So this might be a very controversial take on this. Is that so? We did think of a system similar to that when we're thinking about the grouping and the karma system. But one of the, at least for right now, our conclusion is that we don't like team killing is actually part of Dark and Darker. That's what we think of right now. Is that there's actually no rules against team killing. So because we want to give people that kind of freedom. The problem is not having any consequences for team killing, right? And that's where up until this point we feel like we failed. It's like we want to have you want to be able to judge someone by building a rapport or having that kind of reputation, and that's what we're going to try to address with the karma system. So the thing is, like, we all if you're going in with people that you've never met before, you should have that kind of tension of, okay, can I really trust this guy or not? Yeah. And so that's why we didn't outright within the system try to handle that. But we do want to, but then it shouldn't just be the wild, wild west, right? Because again, you're so anonymous online, right? And so you could just create a new, so we want there to be some kind of weight to your reputation. And that's what we're going to try to, this karma system, to us, we're kind of really excited about it because we're like, man, this is kind of like a social experience. I feel bad saying like, oh, we're experimenting with but to us, it's like, we don't know. We don't know how people are going to actually behave with this karma system. Like we were making bets last night. Like, man, I bet you like in 3 days, 90% of our player base all have red names. You know, people are innately good. You know, they're gonna be helping each other out, and there's gonna be a bunch of blue names, and so there's degrees of how people rate you.
Can we give them an instantly red name if they shoot Otto in the tavern?
we don't but that goes back to answering. That's why we didn't within the system make it so it's a hard, it's now we leave it up to the community, and we're going to see how the community uses this tool. So the problem in the past was not giving any kind of tools, right? And it was just pure chaos. It's like, okay, so we'll give people ways that they can hint, but we always want that kind of sense of element of danger, okay, I'm teaming, we want it to feel like the actual, you're in the tavern, and then there's all the other adventurers there, like, can I really trust this guy? What's his motivation? That's so we want to give that kind of, keep that freedom to the players, but we are wary. We are wary. If the community just totally degenerates into everyone, then we might have to make a harder line. But this is something, that maintaining player freedom is something that I think we have to make really deep considerations before we overstep that, or cross that line,
Awesome, I respect the answer.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we're starting to run over here, so we got to start wrapping this up.
The reason why is right now it's super cold in Korea, and we only have one meeting room, and people use it for lunch.
Okay.
It's
we'll get
little after noon right now, so I'm getting the side eyes.
Okay, we'll wrap up real quick.
Only warm area that people could congregate.
So I have two more like really quick questions. The first is bulk, like buying and selling of items. So like being able to buy like 3 potions at once, or sell your silver coins for gold coins like at once.
Yeah.
So that was actually a more difficult problem than we initially expected. We do have a solution. It's not like the perfect solution, but now with the vendors too, they do sell stacked items.
Okay.
Right?
So that okay, good.
So
all right.
It's kind of like an intermediary step until. So again, those are the things we kind of focused on. Is like, okay, making just the overall play experience, not the gameplay, but the play experience a little bit smoother. So that's
good.
Kind of addressed.
Good step in the right direction. And then the last question I think I have is for the ruby silver mining, the ratios of like how much it took to mine the material, to turn it into the ingots, to craft an actual or make an actual like item to wear or use was an awful lot. Has that been adjusted at all?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, I think off the top of my, I think we just slashed in half.
Oh, okay. All right, cool.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah. Because I never saw a single person running around with like any of that gear, like the entire time. I never saw a piece of it. So it would be cool to see somebody like actually wearing it,
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I think hopefully this time you'll see more people wearing it.
Yeah, that would be great. Yeah. Okay. I mean, Sacriel, unless you have anything, I think that's pretty much most of everything I think I wanted to ask. Oh, and I guess
that was awesome.
I'm going to assume that there aren't any quests or anything being implemented for this playtest, but like working on it in the future.
Yes.
Okay.
So I mean, that's why I need to keep my mouth shut. But because previously, again, we thought we're going to focus on the content. We're going to have the initial quest listed in, but that was kind of a pipe dream. That's a little bit too ambitious. And so I think that's going to be pushed off until we'll see the preliminary quest system, the start of it for the the next test, or
Okay.
yeah, we'll see.
Cool. Well, Terry, thank you so much for spending your morning and I guess our evening with us for a little while. It's always a pleasure talking to you. For everybody in chat, a copy of this will be put up on YouTube for you guys to review, and I'll do a summary for you all if you want the short form stuff. But yeah, man, thank you so much for spending the time.
All right, thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right,
All right. See you later. All right, Chad. Well, there you go. We did it. It happened. Hopefully I got to most all your questions. Sorry if it took a little longer than you guys, some of you guys had wanted to get to the end questions. Thank you all of you guys that decided to sub the channel while we were talking. I'm sorry I didn't get to everybody. I wish I could have like left the alerts on and said thank you to everyone, but you know, it's a little wild trying to pay attention and, you know, getting all that. So, but yeah, thanks fellas.